welcome to my kitchen. But today we're not staying in my kitchen. Instead, we are going to go out to our garden and I'm going to show you how we make a very space-efficient, budget-friendly garden in our little townhome area. So it's not an ideal place for a garden, but it's so windy outside. But this is what we have found that works for us. I'm going to take you outside to our back patio area and show you how we're getting ready for our garden right now in the spring. It's beautiful, and how we're also starting plants indoors without a real good place to start our plants indoors, and it'll be great. Gardening. We've tried container gardening, and we've done pallet gardening, and we've done square foot gardening. And the reason why our family chose to do those kinds is because for a long time we were in rentals, or we were in less than ideal situations for gardening, and we've never actually had a big yard that was all our own, that we could actually till up and we could, work the soil and all that. But I will say, after 10 years of different styles of gardening, I love the raised bed method, and I can't really see myself going to tilling up a patch of yard, simply because I know how bad the weeds get. I grew up with a garden that, we've tried just tilling the garden, and we did raised beds, and so I've seen both things. And I gotta tell you, here's the truth. Nobody wants to weed the garden in the middle of the summer. I don't care how enthusiastic we are at the beginning of the spring when the weather's beautiful and we're planting our garden and we're getting ready to put all the plants in. The garden is not fun and exciting in mid-July when it is hot as Hades outside and the garden is full of weeds, and when it is hot as Hades outside and the garden is full of weeds, and that's the last thing you want to do. So what I have decided is that even though tilling your yard seems like a very budget-friendly method, I want to not spend a lot of money, but I also want my garden to be extremely successful. And so I've found a lot of success in using the raised bed method, even though it's a little more expensive up front. And I can say that with true honesty because we've been in multiple rentals and I've had to buy dirt multiple times, but I will still say that it is absolutely worth it to buy dirt that first year and then not have to worry about weeding the rest of the time. And remember, I grew up weeding a big garden that was, just full of regular dirt and tons of weeds. So I try to plan my garden in the spring as if the weather's gonna be awful and I'm not gonna want to be in the garden for most of the gardening season, because you know what? I live in the South and that's just the truth. We don't want to be outside or in the garden through most of the growing season. The vegetables love it, the plants love it, the weeds love it, and so I need to set up my garden in a way that's going to create minimal work for me, but maximum success. So I read a whole bunch of gardening books when I was first starting out, and honestly, I didn't make it through most of them. I do get excited about gardening, but a lot of them talk up here and I didn't get it. But there was one book that changed everything for me, and it's probably the reason why I love the raised garden method, and that's because that is the all-new square foot gardening book. Now this is the third edition, second edition. I don't know, I've gotten this from the library, I borrowed it from friends, and then finally I found it at the used bookstore. So I know they have at least 3 editions out. This one might be the second. I love this book because the author is a little bit quirky and a little bit funny, so that's entertaining at least. And he talks a lot about making a garden that is easy to maintain and one that's going to be very successful for you with minimal work. And he has tons of budget-friendly tips along the way. So I felt like this book was really written for people like me who love the idea of gardening, but don't want to be a professional gardener. I just want to grow some tomatoes and cucumbers, for goodness sake. So this book, I highly recommend this book. If you haven't read a gardening book, I'm going to show you what works in my situation and what's worked in the multiple situations that I've lived in, but everybody's unique, right? And so I just want to set you up for success. And just so that we can be super authentic and fun here, if you have any questions about gardening or growing your own food, drop them in the comments below and I'll answer them. If we were talking about square foot gardening, I would tell you that the basic idea is that you build a wooden frame and you want the boards to be at least 6 inches high. So boards that are like this, and like I think mine are 1.5 inches thick. So that's a good thickness. So that way it's sturdy and it will last through rain and all that stuff. So you build your frame, it's just like a rectangle or a square or whatever shape you want it to be. And then you put a weed cloth on the bottom of it. So that just involves like a staple gun and some cheap weed cloth that you can get at any gardening store. Some people use cardboard instead, and in fact when we had our pallet garden, which I have a post on the blog all about how we did our pallet garden, which is very similar to the square foot gardening method. You just use pallets instead, and it can be a little more finicky, but it was a really budget-friendly option. You can just lay down old cardboard boxes instead of getting a weed cloth, so that way it's even more budget-friendly. And you just lay that out on the grass, and then you set the frame on top of it. But for me, I already had weed cloth from another project that we had, so I just used the weed cloth that we had, stapled it to the bottom of the rectangular frame, and then set it down on the ground, and then filled it with dirt. And you want to get dirt that is specific to raised bed gardens. Potting mix also works. Typically raised bed garden mix is less expensive. I think when I bought my dirt originally, I used a combination of organic and just regular, because it was what we could afford at the time. And the idea behind this is that if you put the potting mix or the raised bed gardening mix in there, you're not putting dirt that has all of the seeds and stuff of weed. So if you're, rather than filling it with dirt from your yard or something like that, that has all different kinds of weed seeds in it, and those weeds are going to grow. When it is hot as Hades outside and the garden is full of weeds, and you're also going to have to worry about like aeration and having, I don't even know if that's the real word. You want dirt that has plenty of air in it so that your little seedlings and your plants can grow easily, and you want dirt that is going to hold the right amount of moisture, so it's not going to get so wet that your plants are going to die, and it's also not going to get so dry that your plants are going to die. And the reality is that the store-bought potting mix stuff is the best option. It's already formulated for you, and so you just buy it one time. That's it. You only buy it once, and then every time you plant your garden after that, you just want to add some nutrients back into the soil. So for example, I have spinach in my garden that's growing right now. Spinach season is going to be over in like a month or two, and it's going to be too hot for the spinach to grow really well. But the spinach already used the nutrients that is in that soil. So if I try to plant seeds, some new seeds to grow something else, those seeds are going to get not as much nutrients as they need to grow well. So all you do is have a bag of compost, which is super cheap. I bought a huge bag that's going to last me probably the next year and a half for like $3 last weekend. So you want 1 scoop per square foot-ish. I never actually measure, I just kind of dump it in and call it good enough. Stir it up, and that puts all the nutrients back in the soil. And if you already have a compost pile going, then you don't even have to buy the compost, you're already making it. So that makes it even more budget friendly. The only reason we don't have a compost pile is because we live in a townhouse and we're not really allowed to have one. And then you don't have to buy anything else. You don't need to worry about tilling the soil anymore. You don't need to worry about anything. You just keep putting compost in it, and it's fine. Like, we keep a pretty good handle on the weeds. We hardly get any. And it's kind of satisfying to pull them up, so the weeds never get out of control in our garden. And there's just not enough weeds to really get to where it's overwhelming. Like, I feel like there's a level between where it's like satisfying to weed your garden and you're like, oh, look at that, I just pulled a couple of things up and now it's beautiful, to where you look at it and you're just like, ugh, like I don't even know if there's vegetables in there anymore. This is ridiculous. That's all you do for maintenance for the square foot garden. Okay, this is my garden box, and this is everything that, what is that? This is where I keep all of the seeds and all of the supplies, everything except for the compost and the shovels, which I don't usually use. Those are just in a corner of our little outdoor storage shed type closet thing that we have. So these are the seeds, and I kind of keep it organized. You can see it's a little bit of a hot mess, but it's very, very simple. And so that makes it very easy to stay organized and know exactly what's going on. Popsicle sticks, obviously we use the popsicle sticks for labeling things. And then I've got a couple of pens in here that help me do that. And this string, every year or so we have to restring some of the squares. So I just keep that in here so that nobody else uses it. And then the seeds are labeled with these super official Post-it notes and a clothespin, my kids do that, to help us keep them organized. So this is early spring fall seeds. So we've got spinach and we've got some lettuce right here. So after I planted it this spring, I just clipped it back on here and set it aside. This is for plants that I want to reseed in late spring. So usually, like this is cilantro. Usually it will bolt pretty quickly in the hot weather, so I will grow it over and over and over again throughout the hot season, and that way I always have fresh cilantro on hand. And then this bag, I've got some oregano that I need to go ahead and plant. But these are the other sections. So I've got herbs to plant after frost, which is late April where I live. I've got some dill, I've got some parsley in here. These are flowers that I would plant after frost. And oh, what is on my finger? So we've got marigolds and sunflowers and zinnias, and I think I planted this kind of sunflowers this year because I tried them for the first time last year and they were really beautiful. And then after frost or start indoors. So I went ahead and started most of these in our little plant starts. So this way, when I come to do my garden in the spring, I'm not trying to sort through a bunch of random bags of seeds. I just grab the early spring and fall. And so I know that that's what I can plant right now. And then I'll grab the flowers, and then I'll grab these, and I know that these are the ones that I probably want to plant in the little containers for later. The other thing that I keep in this box is a little grid of what I planted where. So sometimes if I don't have the popsicle sticks and I can't label things, like this year I didn't have the popsicle sticks handy when I first planted the seeds, then I just have this. So I just want to show you how you can keep it super chill. And then I made another one for the summer because things are going to change. Eventually the spinach is going to get too hot, it's going to get overgrown, I'm going to have to pull it up and I'm going to have to change stuff. So this is my summer garden, and I already planted the sunflowers, so I know those are going to be there. I know that the green beans and the marigolds and the zinnias, those are all going to stay there, but I just have some empty squares for where I'm going to plant the other seeds that I started. The other thing that I keep in here is this guy, which is super handy, especially if you have little kids planting with you. You can just dump some seeds in here and they can pick them up and they can put them in the ground, and it just makes it easier. So this guy just stays in here. And that's it. You can tell it's not very full, it's nothing super impressive, but it is very simple and it makes gardening that much easier, and it's easy to store for our house that is not really set up for being very garden friendly. It helps me stay organized, it keeps everything very efficient and simple, and I love it. even though sometimes when we have a small garden, we want to capitalize as much of the space as we can for vegetables, I highly recommend that you also plant some flowers along with your vegetables. You want flowers to grow in your area because that's going to attract more bees and more hummingbirds and more critters that are pollinating the plants. Some flowers are also very beneficial because they keep pests away. So I always grow marigolds. Go ahead and do your research, maybe learn which critters might be a concern where you live, and try to plant some plants that are going to help you in multiple ways. Alright, our garden has been growing for almost a month now, and I want to show you how it's doing. We did lose some green beans to a frost, but I went ahead and replanted them, so we've got some green beans that are going to be a little bit older than the others, and that's fine because then they'll keep producing throughout the summer. And I just want to show you how the plant starts are doing and what it's looking like now, so you can kind of get a before and after view of our spring garden almost transitioning to summer. I shared some of our top garden posts in the link in the description, so if you want to see more, then you can go ahead and check those out. But I hope that this video helped give you a really good overview of what's working for us right now and give you some good ideas for yourself. I'm Steph from cheapskatecook.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more ways to save money and eat healthy.